Hi everyone, this is Pam Caughey, and this is my virtual background behind me. This is our backyard, and I just thought I'd kind of mix things up. So what we're going to be looking at in this video is one of my many experiments that I tend to do in my studio, which is kind of like a lab, I guess. And I always believe that, your art is also a science. There are many things that you can do to explore materials and your supplies and techniques and things like that. So one of the techniques that many cold wax and oil artists are interested in is kind of what I call the Gamsol lift, but sometimes you can use CitriSolv, which is a little bit stronger solvent. And so in this experiment, we're going to take a look at how does Gamsol compare to CitriSolv when you're trying to do like a lift, when you drip the solvent onto a very thin layer of, paint, how well does it lift off the surface? How long do you need to wait? And how do you actually do the technique itself? So that's what we're going to take a look at in this video. Thanks everyone. I hope it's helpful. So on this board, I have a 4 square over here, and I've put Indian yellow with the brayer, and now I'm going to put some quinacridone magenta over here. And this other quadrant, this one is a combination of quinacridone magenta and Indian yellow, so it's kind of orange. So this will be just quinacridone magenta. See what else. Take another color. How about transparent earth yellow. That might be interesting. And this one, I'm just going to use my Messermeister. Actually, I better first add some cold wax medium to it. Nice warm color. Love the effects you get using this Messermeister because, you can put it on thickly like that, but then you can peel it back and bring it down just to the paper almost and get right over that edge where the tape is. I feel like it's a more expressive tool than, say, the brayer, so I really don't use my brayer very much at all. I prefer to use something that's, I guess I just prefer this. So I put it on like that. See how lovely that is. Okay, so I'm going to let those set up a little bit. So that's going to be my warm set of 4. Okay, so as you can see, there are these 4 warm colors on Arches oil paper, and I'm going to let this dry for a few hours to the tacky stage. And you saw that I had freezer paper on the back side. That's just to keep the back side clean. Here are my oiler boilers. That's what they're called, and you can find these in my resource section. You can see I've labeled them. One says Gamsol, one says CitriSolv. These are the 2 solvents we're going to be using, and they're very different in terms of, you know, one is a little bit more potent than the other one, a little bit more caustic, and that would be the CitriSolv. It's actually stronger than the Gamsol. I've got my phone ready to go, and I'm going to time it. And then here are the transparent pigments. They're high contrast, they're cool. That's what the label says on the back, that they are transparent, and most professional brands will tell you if they're transparent or opaque, but I'm using cool colors over warm. This is ultramarine blue, which is a transparent color. And when I use my brayer, go back and forth and make sure it's really even. What I'm going for is an even thickness, very thin over the surface of the tacky, you know, semi-dry underpainting of warm, so that when we put on the solvent and we peel it back, you'll be able to see a high contrast difference. So I'm kind of doing it on the left side of each of these 4 panels, and I'm going to be using Viridian on the right side of each of these 4 panels. Just trying 2 different glazing colors. Now this Viridian is very, very thin, great glaze, but I have to go over it a few times just to even it out, as you can see. Still very, very thin. And I'm going to be using my timer, you know, like 2 different time points. One is going to be around 2 minutes, and then the other one's going to be around 3 minutes. So that's kind of why I'm doing this over 4 different paintings, or I should say 4 different columns here that you can see of the French ultramarine blue and the Viridian, is that 2 of the 4 columns are going to be 3 minutes, and then the other 2 are going to be 4 minutes or 3 minutes. So here I'm starting with Gamsol, just putting some dots on there. This is going to be the 2-minute column. And this is a CitriSolv, which is a little bit more potent. The reason I don't, you know, I would only use that, I guess, if I really, really wanted to have a very clean lift. And I'll talk about that a little bit. Tipping the paper here just to let the force of gravity pull the solvent down. I did a little test one time with CitriSolv, put a little bit in a dish and let it dry, and it left a little bit of a sticky, tacky residue. And that's Gamblin Colors that told me to try that, because they, you know, they have their own product, Gamsol, but I had asked them about CitriSolv and if that would also work. And they said, well, why don't you just try this and see if it leaves a sticky residue? And it did. I will still use it though, because it's just a very small amount of tackiness and stickiness. It does do a very good job of lifting the paint. But if it's not that important, then I will stick with the Gamsol because it's better for your health than the CitriSolv. Now I'm starting my timer, and we're going to go for 2 minutes here and check out how the Gamsol and the CitriSolv do after just 2 minutes of sitting on top of that layer of glaze over the tacky underpainting. And you let it sit there, because when you let it sit there for the 2 minutes or whatever time you choose, it's working its way through that glaze. It's eating away at it. And we're going for, the experiment is to see whether the Gamsol, how comparable it is to the more caustic CitriSolv. I mean, if there's not much difference, then you would just go with the Gamsol. But if there's a huge difference, then you'd be like, yeah, well, maybe I do want to use a CitriSolv. So that's kind of what this test is about. It's also about, how long should we let it sit there? So I'm trying 2 minutes and 3 minutes. Beyond that, you're not gonna, you kind of run the risk of it going all the way down to the underpainting. So that's why you don't want to leave it on there forever. But you've got a tacky underlayer and a fresh upper glazed layer. Okay, so now I peel it back and I use a Messermeister. There it goes. You can see exactly where the Gamsol was. And then I wipe off the Messermeister and kind of wipe up the mess there. When I have a paper towel ready to soak up the excess. And then I'm going to go through the CitriSolv side and see how well that does. Now it is over Viridian and the Gamsol was over ultramarine blue. So, there are two different colors, but they are both transparent glazes. So not too much of a difference there at 2 minutes. I'd say the Gamsol did a pretty good job. And now we're going to wait for 3 minutes, and then we're going to go into the Gamsol side first, and then we're going to go into the CitriSolv side. Cleaned off my Messermeister, ready to go, just watching the timer. And it's not exactly on 3 minutes. It's close to 3 minutes. So there we go. I'm going to pull it back. The contrast between the blue and the red is less than the blue and the yellow, obviously. So you're seeing it a little bit better when there's higher contrast in the value of the color. And there's the CitriSolv side. Again, good results really with the Gamsol and the CitriSolv. So, there will be times when maybe the Gamsol is just not going to do as good a job and you want to try it with CitriSolv. Just know that both will work. The Gamsol is preferable if you can do it that way because it is a safer product than CitriSolv. People tend to think, oh, CitriSolv, it smells like oranges, therefore, it must be safe and I don't even have to wear gloves. That's not true. It's actually very, very potent. And there's a close-up of what it looks like. A little bit of tissue paper after you've done this technique is good because you can remove any excess solvent that's just lingering on the top so that you prevent it from eating away even more. Like you've done the lift, you've peeled it back, and you just want to get rid of all the extra dribbles. Sometimes I'll use 2 sheets of tissue just to make sure I've gotten it all. Just a gentle touch, not much pressure. Now for the fun part, taking the tape off. Make sure your hands are clean. Sometimes I will take a little bit of paper towel that's clean and use that to hold down the white edge as I pull the tape back. So whatever it takes, try to keep your borders clean. I mean, this is just an experiment. It's not so important that I keep my borders clean, but it's a good practice every time you peel tape back to, practice on the things that don't matter so that when it does matter, you kind of have mastered that technique. But a lot of artists think this is like one of the best parts of the whole process is being able to get rid of all the messy borders and see what you've created. There's my freezer paper in the back. I tend to make a lot of these 4 square panels in advance. So whether I use them for real actual paintings or experiments, I just grab one and that's why they're all kind of the same. There it is. Just a great reference that you can hang on your studio wall to remember kind of what you did. Again, glazing colors over a tacky surface works best.